Sherrone Moore had a $13 million buyout. Now listen, we know Michigan got money, but at the same time, hold up, you cutting into our money that could go towards players. It's time to get in this transfer portal and be like, man, look, I got $2 million for you. I got $5 million for you. It's that kind of love they showing these athletes. And so it's like, hold up. We can't write him a check for $13 million and we trying to turn this thing around. And so what are you saying, Willis? All I'm saying is I would not be surprised if this whole thing was orchestrated.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believe in high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.
Where you at, beautiful people? How you doing? How you living? How life treating you? Welcome to another episode of Call Your First Witness. You already know it's your boy K Will checking in. Glad you're here with me today during this holiday season. I hope you're having a good time. All is well with me on my end, and I'm ready to jump right into this, y'all. Man, listen, there was a story that came out about a week ago. Hit the news big, y'all, like big news. If you're a sports fan, you know about it. If you're not a sports fan, you still know about it. You know what I mean? But it's involving former Michigan football team head coach Sherrone Moore. All right. And I'm not going to lie, y'all, this story, I've been thinking about this story all week. You know, I couldn't get to a mic fast enough. I had a busy week. I ain't going to lie, man. Something about the end of the year, something about the holiday season. You would think that things would slow down at the office, you know, but at the same time, man, it's like crunch time, trying to meet some deadlines, trying to settle cases, you know, trying to just knock out some things that probably should have been knocked out a long time ago. But, you know, a day in the life of a lawyer, man, it don't stop. And I'm not complaining. Don't get it twisted. But, you know, your boy like to check in too, man, especially when it's hot and heavy, man. That topic, it seemed like it happened a while ago, but it's been only a week. You know, we talking about Sherrone Moore. I mean, we talking about a guy was at the top of the mountain. You know, I think that's a stretch. They didn't win a championship. He does have a ring under John Harbaugh, and I'm going to touch on that a little later. John Harbaugh got up out of there, but he was a disciple of John Harbaugh, right? He had some credibility just from being under John Harbaugh's regime, right? And so he got a ring. He ascended as the head coach for a prestigious institution. We talking about Michigan Wolverines, man. Listen, I'm a diehard LSU fan. If you know me, that's not news to you. But when your boy was a kid, it was something about the maize and blue. It was something about that helmet. It was something about the Michigan Wolverines, the big house. You know what I mean? And so it's no secret that is a very sought after position, being a head coach. It's no secret that when Sherrone Moore was fired, his world had to turn upside down on him, right? But the story has been, I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think mainly because I'm a criminal defense attorney, and mainly it's because of the compassion that I have for just people, right? And one of the moments that I feel at home is when I'm that person that's consulting someone during their darkest moments, right? You know, their world just got turned upside down, and they're looking for some type of optimism. They're looking for hope. They're looking for a shot, right? Any person who has to, you know, find themselves in, let's just keep it real, a white jumpsuit, right? Like when I saw that white jumpsuit, you know, with the brother incarcerated, man, I was like, oh, we talking suicide watch, right? And so that's for anybody, but being on a big stage, at a prestigious institution where all eyes on you, you don't need me to tell you that's on a whole different level. But man, all you hear, it's typical. He made his decision. That's what he get and all that kind of stuff. Man, listen, I'm not interested in judging folks. I'm not a moralist. I've been practicing for 17 years, man. I've seen a whole lot. I started my career doing a whole lot of other areas, not just criminal defense. Your boy did family law, right? I thank goodness I retired from family law many, many years ago. But what I'm saying is I'm familiar with human behavior. I'll take secrets to the grave of people's stories and people in their worst moments and things that they would never want to go public, man. People in high positions and high places, you know what I mean? Indiscretions, right? And so I'm not interested in judging folks. That's not what I do. That's no surprise to you. I'm a defense lawyer. But the compassion in me is like, hold up, y'all. I get it. It's all on social media. It's all on the news. How can he be so stupid? How the dude was at the top of the mountain and he threw his whole life away, his family, he got kids. I get all that, man. But you're not going to get that from me. I want to go straight to the law. I want to go straight to the courtroom. But before I go there, man, I must tell you, as a trial lawyer, I'm always interested in the backstory. I'm always interested in the narrative. I'm always thinking about there got to be more to this story, right? As criminal defense lawyers, the good ones, you know who you are, right? The moment your client sit down, you already thinking about that narrative, that theory of defense, right? Matter of fact, before you even sit down with your client, you already thinking about the narrative. You thinking about the compelling story. You thinking about they saying nothing but negative things about your client. The story is horrific, right? And it's your job, man, to say, hold up a second, man. And so what I'm thinking about this particular case, I'm saying, hold up, man, we got to back this up a little bit because I'm looking at the timeline and I got questions. Because according to several accounts, they're saying the brother got news from his alleged mistress that she no longer wanted to be with him on December 8th. All right. That was a Monday, top of the week, right? Monday. Folks, let me tell you something about Mondays. I get the most calls at my office from clients on Mondays or prospective clients. Something about the top of the week. So this alleged victim, this complaining witness, according to numerous reports, came at Sherrone Moore saying, listen, it was a nice run, you know what I mean? But I'm not feeling you like I used to, right? And so he gets this on Monday, and then on Wednesday, he finds out from his employer, listen, man, I need you to leave, pack your bags, and don't let the door hit you on your way out, right? And so he has to process this, and we got all these accounts about where he went immediately. He went to his alleged mistress's home. He barged up in there, according to the prosecutor. But guess what? When you say barge, Miss Prosecutor, what you mean by that? Did he have a key? Did he break into the home? How frequent was he at that house? Is there any indication of him busting through the windows or busting through the door or the garage? Oh, I'm sorry, home invasion, all you need to do is walk up in there with no permission. That's it, right? When we think of home invasion, we think of something totally bad, right? That's not what really comes to mind. But if you talk to most criminal defense lawyers, they'll tell you most of their cases, as it relates to home invasion, you're dealing with something domestic. You're dealing with girlfriend and boyfriend or husband and wife. You're dealing with some kind of domestic situation where the individual was familiar with being at that house, came and went as they pleased, but when Mad Day hit, it was a different story. Yeah, so when I heard home invasion, I was like, it's not as bad as it sounds. It is a felony, right? But I already got a snapshot. There's some undertones here that we need to address, right? And so he got that charge, which is the worst one. That's the felony. It's up to 5 years. But he also has 2 misdemeanors: stalking, dealing with a domestic partner, and he got breaking and entering. 2 misdemeanors. Not to make light of it. He got to deal with it. But these are his 3 charges. Now, listen, I got questions, but before I get to that, I want to get to the backdrop, because if you telling me on December 8th, he gets the news that his alleged mistress wants to break up with him, and on December 12th, Michigan gives him the axe, I want to talk about what happened leading up to all this, because I got to believe there's more to this story, y'all. And so I remember, because when I heard this story, I said, hold up. Just over the weekend, I was on my couch watching a spectacular football game. Yeah, the Big Ten Championship. Oh, my God. I was thoroughly entertained. You had Ohio State. That's a familiar name. That's a familiar team. You see them a lot in the Big Ten Championship. You also see them in the Big Dance, the National Championship. But then you had another team, right? The Indiana Hoosiers, y'all. No. I'm not talking about March Madness. I know what you're thinking. No, I'm talking about football. The Indiana Hoosiers, they playing in the Big Ten Championship. When I think of the Hoosiers, I don't know. I think of Gene Hackman. You know what I mean? I think of Bobby Knight throwing the chair at somebody. I'm going to keep it real with you. I do not think of Indiana Hoosiers football. I'm sorry. And so if I'm thinking that, what do you think Michigan fans are thinking? What do you think Michigan administration is thinking? What do you think Michigan boosters are thinking? What are you saying, Willis? What I'm trying to say is, before the Big Ten Championship, Michigan had to play Ohio State. If you know anything about football, that is one of the biggest rivalries in sports history. Period. Pick a sport: hockey, football, basketball, croquet. I don't care what sport it is, that's up there at the top. And so they lost that game to Ohio State, right? And so now they can't play in the Big Ten Championship, right? Now they can't make the playoffs. They got an 8-3 season. Stuff's starting to look familiar like last year. Yeah, last year them boys played in the Real Quest Bowl. Last year they had an 8-5 season and they played Alabama. Yep, they won too. Probably played against Alabama's scout team. I don't know. You know how that go. And so what I'm saying is, you got boosters like, hold up, man. You got a situation post-COVID, y'all. Let me break it down. Bear with me for a little bit, because I'm trying to get somewhere. Post-COVID, 2021, Michigan beat Ohio State. 2022, Michigan beat Ohio State. 23, Michigan, again, on top of Ohio State. Remember that season? That's when John Harbaugh took the team. He was at the helm, took them to a 15-0 season, won a national championship. Yeah, so we talking about that level of success, right? John Harbaugh unceremoniously left, right? Things were getting hot and heavy. John Harbaugh said, you know what? I'm out. Dude dipped out like Pete Carroll at USC. Dude dipped out. He like, the media is here too much, and it ain't on some positive stuff. You know what I mean? And so he skirmished, started up, coaching in the NFL, got him a fat contract. But you got to remember, Sherrone Moore was one of Coach Harbaugh's disciples. And so I don't believe he was really, really cherry-picked by Michigan's administration. But I felt like because he was under John Harbaugh's regime and he was attached to that undefeated season, and you got John Harbaugh probably talking you up, you know, they're like, all right, let's give his brother a shot. And so the first year was kind of like, oh, man, 8-5, you know, that's a big drop from 15-0, but we get it. We kind of rebuilding. John Harbaugh done left. We going to give you a pass on this one. But we watching you, bruh. The clock ticking, man. It's a new era. This NIL. Ain't no such thing as the process. You know, it's win, baby, win. How Al Davis said. You know what I mean? It's win, baby, win, and it's win now. That thing 10X. We trying to win on a whole different level. And Michigan got money. You hear me? Just follow me for a second. So it's season 2. We got an 8-3 season. That's unacceptable. Maybe a few years ago, but not in this era. Yeah, that transfer portal, we could kind of do our thing. We spent some money. We got some bread. Look, we had a good institution. What you mean 8-3, not competing in the Big Ten championship, not competing in the playoffs for the national championship? Oh, man, Sherrone Moore, man, I don't know, bro. But see, when the powers that be are talking about this situation and the boosters, you got to remember Sherrone Moore had a $13 million buyout. And so if you want to get rid of him, you got to pay $13 million. Now, listen, we know Michigan got money, but at the same time, hold up, you cutting into our money that could go towards players. It's time to get in this transfer portal and be like, man, look, I got $2 million for you. I got $5 million for you. I got, you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of love they showing these athletes. And so it's like, hold up. We can't write him a check for $13 million. And we trying to turn this thing around. And so what are you saying, Willis? All I'm saying is I would not be surprised if this whole thing was orchestrated. And the rumblings from the boosters and trying to figure out the next season and understanding this a new era and we can't wait for Coach Moore to turn the corner. Nah, man, you got Alabama making moves. You got Ohio State always making moves. You got LSU and hired Lane Kiffin. You got Penn State getting rid of their coach, trying to take it to another level. This is a different kind of era, bruh. You ain't making it happen. But Michigan, like, I need to be efficient with spending this money. I still got to make some sense of this. And so what I'm saying is, I don't know. There's more to this story. I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of way it got out that the young lady was kind of nudged to go to the investigative office at Michigan. Because you have to understand, this wasn't the first time this information came out. According to several accounts, the alleged victim was questioned about an inappropriate relationship months ago. She denied it. Sherrone Moore denied it, right? And so you can't just sit up here and think that all of a sudden this came to Michigan's mind after the Big Ten championship, after they realized, oh, we're not playing in the playoffs. My question is, would all this have came out, this sequence of events, would it came out if they made it to the playoffs? Would it came out if they played in the Big Ten championship and they beat Ohio State? Is it altogether shocking that Michigan knew about this prior to that Monday, prior to that Wednesday, and whenever they so-called had this investigation, but all of a sudden there is sufficient cause to get rid of this man? I'm saying nothing that's alarming. This is not a revelation. I know folks were thinking this. If you know anything about the way this works, if you know me, I'm a diehard LSU fan, man. They just hired Lane Kiffin, trying to get rid of Brian Kelly. All of a sudden, you heard rumblings about an inappropriate relationship. All of a sudden, because what? You trying to get rid of Brian Kelly for cause. You trying to save some money. You trying to pay Lane Kiffin. You trying to play these players in this transfer portal, and now you got to pay Brian Kelly? Don't get me wrong, folks got it, but, you know, these business people, you know, they're still trying to save $1. And so what I'm saying is, look, this ain't no conspiracy theory. All I'm saying is this is what we do as defense lawyers, especially if you operating at a high level. You got to push the narrative. You got to ask the question, not a whole lot of folks asking. And that's directly relevant to this case because you got to let folks know, hold up. If this thing was orchestrated, we got to question the veracity of all these allegations. These are questions that I'm asking because at the end of the day, they said the brother had 2 butter knives, y'all, and the scissors. He wasn't coming at her. He's threatening to harm himself. That's not a crime. And so that's why you had the prosecutor saying, oh, well, we understand that he didn't threaten her, but she was terrorized. Why she didn't call 911? Why did she say, I'm about to call my lawyer? What lawyer? You got a lawyer on speed dial? You anticipated this? Who furnished you that lawyer? Was it Michigan? Again, was this all orchestrated? Was this a barging into the house? Was he familiar with this house? Did he frequent this house back and forth? Did he occasionally frequent this house such to the point that he felt so comfortable with just going in and approaching her and like, yo, you destroyed my life? But was it stalking? The prosecutor said, oh, well, after the complainant broke up with him that Monday, he kept sending her numerous messages. And that's an indication of harassment. Well, what you think somebody gonna do after somebody breaks up with him? I mean, that's human behavior. What you think? They just gonna say, oh, I knew you were coming with this. I get it. You know what I mean? Cool. It's cool. See you around. See you around. And so I'm just asking questions like, hold up, was this harassment? Because what I want to do is I want to subpoena the complaining witnesses' phone records. I want to see text messages and communication leading up to that particular Monday. How was the conversation? Was it jovial? Was there love emojis? Was there little heart messages? What was there? Baby, I love you and all this kind of stuff. Or I don't know. Maybe you're not gonna see that kind of stuff because a lot of this probably was covert. Tried to be covert. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I want to know the relationship and the nature of it leading up to Monday when Mad Day came. I'm just interested, did somebody give her a nudge, which was the impetus to cause her to move forward and sit down with folks at Michigan in the HR office, the administrative office, and say, listen, I got a problem. Yeah. You remember when folks questioned me about whether or not I was in a relationship with Coach Moore? I would like to recant my statement. I want to tell you everything today. Was there an incentive to help her go back to that office and give another story? I'm just asking. Is that out of the realm of possibility? Willis, well, what does that have to do with this particular matter? What I'm saying is, yes, if all this is true, it had to have been one of Coach Moore's darkest moments. He finds out his mistress breaks up with him 2 days later. He's fired from his position as head coach for the Michigan Wolverines, y'all. And so everybody's saying, man, now you hearing something about reports about he had mental problems and he needs to be evaluated and all that kind of stuff. Listen, the only part I really give credence to, and I understand, if he said, I'm about to take my life and you going to watch me take my life and my blood is on your hands. If he said that, yes, you can't take that lightly. He has to be evaluated. I understand that he needs to be on suicide watch because you can't play around with that kind of stuff. But you got to be careful when you just automatically say this person got mental problems. Because a lot of us don't know what we would do and what we would say in that situation. We could sit up here and talk and give our opinions and cast our judgment. At the end of the day, you just lost your job. You just lost somebody who you had feelings for, whether it was right or wrong. That's not for me to talk about. But all this is happening. Your world just turned upside down. You are enraged. You're not thinking straight. You are acting in the excess of your emotion. I would think it'd be more strange if he did nothing. I'm not here condoning behavior and all that kind of stuff, but I would think it would be more out of the norm if he just said, you know what, I'm fired. My girl left me. You know what, I was praying for this anyway. I was praying for this anyway. You know what I mean? Don't act like this type of behavior. Man, do we understand when folks get fired? Why you think they need to be escorted out the building? Why you think folks got to call security to make sure they could get their box and get the heck up out of there? You don't know what that person may lose it. And so all this talk about he got some mental problems, man, listen, hold up. Again, you got to take that matter seriously, but his world was crumbling, y'all. And I'm not here to, you don't even need me to tell you this. I'm not here to condone behavior, but you get it. This, call your first witness. This is my perspective as a criminal defense lawyer. And a lot of times I try my best to be objective and, you know, it's not hard for me to present the other angle, but I just wanted to spend a little time where I'm comfortable at. Because I see a man, you got to understand, I see a man sitting in jail in that white jumpsuit, and it's just like, oh, and social media and the news having a field day with this brother. And I'm like, I got to believe that there is more to this story. And when we're talking about winning and we're talking about money and we're talking about trying to gain an edge, folks going to do whatever it takes. So you mean to tell me nobody at that institution knew? Because what we're hearing is they were messing around for a long time. And so all of a sudden, at the end of the season, when folks are being evaluated and folks are assessing the football season, and you seeing Ohio State moving on, you seeing Indiana Hoosiers playing in the Big Ten championship, now in the playoffs, you see all this stuff happening and your team playing on New Year's Eve in a chicken finger bowl. I'm just saying, like, we got to make some moves. What we doing? What we doing, coach? You know, so again, we're going to hear more from this. Coach Moore has a preliminary hearing on January 22nd, 2026. I wouldn't be shocked if nothing really happened on that day. A preliminary hearing gives Mr. Moore an opportunity to question the lead detective on this particular case. At that hearing, the state has to establish probable cause for Mr. Moore's arrest. I wouldn't be surprised if that's continued for whatever reason. Given Mr. Moore's record, I would be shocked if this thing went to trial. I understand he was ordered to seek mental treatment, and so that may work in his favor. But again, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to kind of acknowledge that there is a mental problem, because when you acknowledge that there's a mental problem, you're acknowledging criminal behavior. A lot of folks may say, yeah, there's something mentally wrong with him. I'm saying you weren't there. I'm saying you don't know what you would have did in that situation. And I get it. You wouldn't be in that situation. But that's my time, y'all. Just wanted to weigh in on this story. Those of you who know me, y'all know I love college football. I love sports. So definitely interested. I think this case addresses a lot of issues. It addresses the manager-employee dynamic. It addresses a prestigious institution and NIL and money and competition at the highest level, right? And the things that are done to either sweep something under the rug or blow it up, right? It addresses race. Let's keep it real. You know, I didn't go there. No need to go there, but let's understand that's at play. Believe that. Let's understand people are looking at it through those lenses also, right? And so very interested. I feel for the coach's family, you know, and I feel for everybody involved, you know, even the complaining witness's family. I know it sounds like I'm coming hard at her. It's just the nature of what we do as defense lawyers. It's the nature of questioning everything, right? As Professor Wilson would always teach me, may she rest in peace, nothing is obvious. Nothing is apparent. Take those words out your vocabulary. And so that's my time, y'all. I hope y'all continue to enjoy the holiday season. I appreciate the love. Definitely appreciate the support. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'm out. Love.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believe in high level representation. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.